How to deal with failure as an entrepreneur. So my name is Coach Wells. I want to tell you a quick story about how to deal with failure as an entrepreneur. I want to tell you guys about how I dealt with it. And I love telling this story because it shows that I'm human. And my goal is to show you that it's okay to be human. And actually, when you decide to be human, it actually allows you to move at a quicker pace because you're not allowing yourself, or you're now allowing yourself to be everything but perfect. Okay. So I love telling people about how I started out as a therapist and as a high performance coach. So back in 2019, I've already been working for 2 years in a public high school as a school counselor. And I loved the job. Don't get me wrong, I loved the job, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled as much as I thought I should be. I also wasn't getting paid as much as I should be. And when you're living in Miami, it's kind of tough to live on a teacher's salary. And I'm just being honest. So after 2 years, I felt that something needed to change. And I decided, you know what? Let me go be a therapist. And I actually got a lot of help from some friends that I'll shout out later. But I decided to become a therapist. And that journey, it started off great because I was having my full-time job during the day. And then in the evenings, I was seeing my private clients. And I didn't have to rely on my private clients to supplement my entire income because I still had my day job. So there was no pressure. But when I quit my day job and all the pressure relied on me, that's when things started to crumble a little bit. That's when I started to see that, you know what, I wasn't making enough money. And because of that, I started to suffer a little bit. I started to get a little stressed, a little anxious, and one can maybe even say a little bit depressed. And the reason was because I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't know much about being an entrepreneur. I knew how to be a therapist. I knew how to be a coach, but I didn't know the techniques to drive in new traffic, to get new leads. And that was really tough for me. And I started to feel like I was failing. And to be quite frank, to a degree I was. Every month I was losing anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000, sometimes even $5,000 a month. And I spent almost, I don't know, I'm gonna say maybe 3 or 4 years building my savings. And I blew through that in a matter of months. And in the last month where the rubber was really hitting the road, everything just clicked. And the reason why is because I went to a conference and I learned about these marketing techniques to help me implement those into my business. And that really made things take off. So what I learned in that conference and the things that I learned in terms of the mindset piece really helped me to turn my business around, and I want to share these with you. So I want to start off first by telling you the first secret that you need to apply to help you to overcome failure as an entrepreneur. And this one is called acceptance and also self-acceptance. And I'm talking to you guys a little bit about this. So when it comes to acceptance, a lot of people think that when they hear acceptance, it's about just throwing up the white flag, giving in, just kind of giving up, if you will. And that's not what acceptance is. Acceptance is your ability to allow things to be what they are without trying to change what it is. And what I mean by change what it is, I mean how you feel towards it, okay? Because here's the thing. Some days, literally, it's going to rain. And if I go outside and try to fight the rain or be mad that it's raining, I'm only wasting energy. What does this mean as entrepreneurs? Maybe even deeper as people. It means that we have to allow things to be what they are and not be so tied up into outcomes, okay? Don't be so tied up into whether things go great, things go well, because at the end of the day, it's all simply data, okay? It's data to let you know if you're going on the right path or the wrong path. But if you don't have an ability to accept the downs of entrepreneurship or the downs of life, you're going to become prisoner to happy moments. And that may sound great, but think about it like this. If you can only enjoy life when you're happy, think about how often you're happy and how often you're enjoying life. Because whether you like it or not, sometimes days will be tough. And that's just a part of life. That's a part of business, right? And people do a great job of avoiding this. And I'm going to tell you how. They stay in their comfort zones. But the people that stay in their comfort zones, they very rarely have fulfillment. Because as humans, we love to progress. So acceptance is big. You have to have that in order to move things forward. Just let things be what they are. Don't be so tied up in the outcomes, and be more open to just not the ups, but the downs in life as well. Now, the self-acceptance piece. This is the messages that you tell yourself when you're not hitting those goals. So do you look at yourself as still being worthy when you fail? Do you look at yourself still being worthy when things don't go your way? If you can say yes, you're still worthy, then you have a very high level of self-acceptance. If you say no, then there's a good chance that you struggle with perfectionism. You struggle with, let's say, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable. Because sometimes people will develop messages that they only can be perfect to be worthy. Well, I don't know anybody that's perfect, do you? And even if you do, there's a good chance you don't really know them as well as you think. So self-acceptance is big. What are the messages that you tell yourself? Do you give yourself compassion? Do you allow yourself to be human? These are all great factors in terms of helping you to overcome failure as an entrepreneur. Next, it's important to have a growth mindset as an entrepreneur. Now, why is that? Well, it kind of ties to my first point. As a growth mindset person, one thing that you very much value is the process of things, the process of learning, and you're not too tied to the outcome. People who have growth mindsets, they see effort as an investment. People who have fixed mindsets, they see effort as a failure, as a waste of time, because they feel as though if they really knew it or if they were great at it, they would have had it by now. But not too many things we're going to get it on the first time. And that's where people with a fixed mindset have things confused. A lot of times we scroll on social media and it seems like everybody's winning. There's these people that's almost like these fly-by-night success stories that we see all the time. And that's the unfortunate thing about today's day and age. It's this instant gratification. But when you have a growth mindset, you're in it for the long haul. You're in it to see, man, who can I really become? Let's see this thing grow. Let's see what I'm really made of. Growth mindset is very crucial. And again, I have a free masterclass that I'll put in the link in this episode that talks more about having a growth mindset. Because this is definitely big when it comes to those ups and downs in life, but also as a small business owner. So that's secret number 2. Second, it's important that you find a business, you find a passion project, you find something that you absolutely love. And the reason why is because the process, right? The distance between point A to point B, like that distance is going to be a lot longer that you're going to spend time in rather than the end point, right? So to make this very literal, right? I'm from South Carolina, but right now I live in Miami. It takes me about 10, maybe 11 hours to drive all the way back. And sometimes I absolutely love to drive. And actually that's the point that I'm trying to make, but let me go further with this. So when I go from Miami to South Carolina, that is a 10-hour drive, right? The excitement that I get once I get to South Carolina, that may last a couple hours, right? And it's here and it's gone, if you will, right? Like when you arrive, poof, you're there. But it's the journey, it's the process that I spend most of the time. And that's how it is as an entrepreneur. That's how it is in life. That's how it is as a 9-to-5er, right? It's the process that you're going to spend the most time with. And there's been so many studies about how happiness or how long happiness lasts whenever you have some type of goal achievement. Some people say the happiness may last 3 hours, it may last 3 days, it can last 3 months. But once that time has passed, we're off to the next almost like sense of fulfillment, if you will. So now the question becomes, what fulfills you? What's going to drive you during that time between point A to point B, that distance, if you will? And that's why it's so important that when you find something that you love, you stick to it, okay? Because again, when you do fail, we have to be able to find the other things that's going to keep us going. Because if you're driven by external rewards, external things like money, rewards, validation, like all this stuff, who are you going to be when those things are gone? Or who are you going to be once you've been given it and now we're looking for the next, let's say, emotional high, right? These are things that we all need to think about. So it's so important that you find something that you love and you stick to it. All right, next, you need to be very descriptive in terms of your outcomes, okay? Not evaluative. And what I'm gonna tell you exactly what I mean by that. So when it comes to, let's say, the amount of money you made this month, this year, or let's say you do a webinar and no one joins your services afterwards, right? What you want to do is you want to be able to step back from the outcome. You want to step back from the evaluations, if you will, right? So like, oh, did it go great? Did it go well? Did it go bad? Did it go terrible? And what you want to do is you want to look at the facts, right? Look at the facts of the webinar that you did. Look at the facts of your monthly income, right? Look at the facts. And the reason why is because that's where all the helpful data is. Something that I love asking my clients, and if you've ever worked with me, you know that I love asking this question. So here it is. I always ask, is there anything that I can do to further along your journey through healing, through performance, through developing confidence, if you will? Like I love asking them, what can I do better? And what I'm looking for is not, oh man, coach, you're great, you're awesome, or let's say they say, coach, you're the worst therapist, you're the worst coach ever. Like that's not really stuff that I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the hardcore facts. Like, hey coach, Can you go over more mindfulness techniques? Or hey coach, I need more help with setting goals. Or hey coach, I need more help with being able to stay focused under pressure. Like those descriptive data points, it helps me to see exactly what I need to give to that client at that time to help them to get from point A to point B. So when you're going through a failure, I actually want you to step back from all the negative things that your mind may be saying. Step back from even the negative things that other people are saying, right? Like if you get a comment that says, oh man, this is trash. Step back from that. And I want you to look at what did I actually do that went well? But then also what did I actually do that didn't go well? And that's another point that I made or that I should make when it comes to self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is not only about being able to accept yourself when things are going great, but it's also about being able to accept yourself when things are going bad. And that is very, very crucial, okay? So again, just look at the outcome and be very descriptive. Don't be evaluative. What I mean by that is don't be opinion-based, be fact-based. Don't hold too tight to judgments, if you will, because your mind, it will tell you, oh, this was wrong, that was wrong. And that all goes to something called a negative bias. That's one of the biases that we all have. And I'll talk about that maybe in another episode. All right, next, before you begin your journey, it's very important that you identify who you want to be. So something that I love from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and this is a book that I refer to a lot of my clients. I tell them that it's important that when you're starting a goal, when you're starting a habit, it's very important that you identify the identity that you're trying to develop as you're going to go on this process. Because the identity is going to then determine the process, and the process is going to determine the outcome. And it's very important to ask yourself, who do I want to be? And here's another thing that I would say. Ask yourself, who do you want to be in the midst of a failure, in the midst of a setback? Do I want to be someone that's resilient, someone that's able to take what they've learned from these failures, from these setbacks, and apply it and become better? Or do I want to be someone that just quits at the sign of every failure? Because here's something that you may or may not know about the successful people that you look up to. So I don't care if it's Grant Cardone, Bishop T.D. Jakes, Russell Brunson, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. I can go on and on and on. All of these guys have had some type of failure in their life. All of these guys have started off small. So why do you feel that you cannot start off small? So focus on the identity. Who do you want to be when failure strikes? All right, so this next one I absolutely love, and it's something that I personally need to do a better job with, and it's celebrating the small wins. So when you have a failure, I guarantee there's something in that failure that you can determine as a win. Sometimes it's just showing up and doing that webinar, that podcast, that course, that presentation, whatever it is. Just getting up there and doing it because last month, last year, that's something that we would have never done. Or maybe you're doing it on the heels of a previous failure. That's something that takes a lot of courage. And that's where people sometimes get confidence confused. They may think that confidence is the absence of fear, and I tell them, no, that is the biggest myth. And again, that's something that I go over in this masterclass that I develop, and it's completely free. It's going to be in the bio of this podcast. But one thing that you absolutely must start doing is celebrating yourself, because sometimes you have to be your own cheerleader. It's great to have people on the sidelines cheering for you, but they're not always going to be there. They're not going to be there when it's 5 a.m. and you're getting up and you're reading, you're doing work, you're doing that podcast, whatever it is. They're not going to be there. So who's going to be there to cheer you on? Well, it has to be the person that's in the mirror. It has to be you. All right, so start celebrating yourself. And I'll say this too, because I've seen this with a few of my clients. Sometimes they don't celebrate themselves because they feel like the win is too small, or they feel like the win wasn't a perfect win. Okay, and that goes back to perfectionism, right? Sometimes we feel as though if it's not really big, it's not worthy. Well, think about what message that says to us. That starts to tell us that we're not worthy, right? That says, well, if I didn't really, let's say, make $1 million, or let's say make $1,000, whatever your number is, you may tell yourself, I don't deserve praise. I'm not doing a great job. But you showed up. And through showing up, you learn something new about yourself. And one can even say you just got simply 1% better. And there's a cumulative advantage to that when you're just getting better and better and better. Just 1%, 1%, 1%. Because that starts to compound and you start to develop a whole new identity through that. So the last one that I love, and again, this is all the things you should do if you're going through failure as an entrepreneur, and it's a support system. When you start off as an entrepreneur, sometimes people think that it's just going to be you, and that's the biggest myth of all. when you start off as an entrepreneur, it's very important to start to tap on people to ask them, hey, how did you do this, right? There may be someone in your field that's been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? There may be someone that's had large success, huge success. And I don't want you to feel that you're going to be a burden if you ask them for support. I don't want you to feel as though you're too small to ask this person who's really, really big, really, really talented for help. That's something that's going to do you a disservice. Start to find people that you can add to your circle and start to lean on them a little bit more. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength. And it's going to help you during tough times, because when you're in the middle of a failure, you're going to need someone to have an objective view on what you're going through to help you to get out of whatever it is that you're in. So guys, these are the 7 things that I want you to do if you're going through failure as an entrepreneur. Comment below, let me know which ones you like. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This is Coach Wells, and welcome to the Players Coach Podcast.